Hey guys, how's it going? Today I want to speak about the subject of where do you get your news? In our social media based society, we have so many outlets where you can actually get the news, be it on the internet, be it through regular old school newspapers, be it on television. But are they right? Are they correct? Well, there's also the old way of doing things, which was basically through word of mouth and how people used to talk. But they also got the news somehow. And we're not talking about gossiping, because gossiping is, well, that's just gossiping. But we're talking about real news here. So, well, the thing is you have to be careful where you get your news. And even if it's from a reliable source, be it a very big newspaper, be it a very renowned news channel or whatever it is, I think you need to be able to think for yourself and also assess if the news that is given to you is the correct news. Because in retrospect, and this we all know, is that history is written by the people who win the wars. So there's always two sides to things. And it's not because somebody might be telling you, well, this is how, this is why, this is how things are, that it is correct. It could be wrong. It could be that basically the person who, for whom it is actually worth more while, or who has more money and all that stuff, will actually give the news. And if they give out the news, well, then they are basically the ones that are telling the story. But is it real or is it fake? And that's the thing that you have to, even though you may hear something and you may hear a point of view, it's always good to get a second point of view, to get a second way of looking at things. It's kind of like going to a doctor. If they say you have to have a surgery, or if they say that you have this kind of illness or that illness, it's always good to look at different methods of healing and different methods of going by stuff. Because, well, if you just go by what one doctor says or one point of view will tell you, well then, well, it's not going to be very successful for you, if that makes sense. And that's definitely basically what I'm trying to say, is that look at your sources. And if, let's say, you like to get your stuff on television, which is the old school way, and which actually is probably the less reliable way of getting things, because basically, well, we know that a lot of the corporate news channels are owned by corporations and stuff like that. So they will often skew whatever is good for the country, or even base whatever news they have with whatever is best in their interest, and not in the interest of the people that are within that way of thinking. So I would say, whatever you do, just look up what needs to, well, what the first point of view is, then cross-reference it with something else on the internet, then cross-reference it with whatever other means of looking at things, newspapers, looking at it also from even perspectives of other nations, other countries, because sometimes if you look at an article that comes from America, or an article that comes from England, or an article that comes from France, you are going to see very different ways of telling that same story. And at the same time, you're going to say, well, wait, I thought this was this and this was that. It's kind of like the same as whenever there's an earthquake in LA, or there's a small little thing, news will always make more out of it than what is actually really happening at the time. And if the thing is really big, sometimes they actually don't even talk about it, because, well, it's not in the real interest of the people in that society. It's not good for the economy. Fear is not good for the economy. So usually if there's really a lot of wars happening in the world and all that stuff, sometimes they don't really I'll say that news will not always show things in the right way, because, well, we want to be able to have people consuming stuff. And if people are in fear, people start saving, people start buying food, people start not going out, and they start keeping reserves at home, food-wise, and drink-wise and all that stuff, and people don't travel and people don't consume, and it's all about money, right? So even wars, it's always about money, it's always about religion, it's always about politics, but in the end it's always about having to want something. And be it the news, be it us as human beings, be it nations and stuff like that, there's always something we desire to have. But if your desire is to have the truth and the real thing, it's going to be very hard, because it's always going to be told from the eyes of whatever reporter, whatever agency, whatever country is dictating that thing. And it's up to you to assess and to look at what you think of it, and if it's worth you looking at it from another's perspective, if it's very important, or if you just accept whatever has been told, and maybe it's not important news, because not all news is as important as the other news. So that's it. That's all I have to say on the subject. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.